Hello there, my loves. It's time for something a little special today. We're going to be making the spell to create some wine. In fact, it's just home brewing, but I want to show you how bloody easy and cheap it is to create your own wine. So, what are we going to need? First of all, you're going to need a demijohn. At the moment, I've got some sterilization fluid in here because you don't want any microbes in this bastard. Next, you're going to need an air trap, one of these. So this will go in the top of here when we're ready for it. We'll put it there anyway. Now for this sterilization fluid, you're going to need some of this, maybe sterilization tablets. Just pop one of those into some water and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Just don't eat them because they're poisonous. Last but not least, we need a hydrometer. Hydrometer and measuring column thing. So yes, this is just whether you want to know the actual percentage of alcohol that's produced at the end of it, but we'll get to that another time. Well, no, I'll do it later. How about that? So we're going to be making a peapod wine, but in place of peapods, I'm using mangetout or mangetout if you want to use the barbaric tongue. I think over in America it's called sugar pea. Yeah, one of those. So we need some of this. Yes, here it is. So I've got a load of them here. There's only 500 grams of the devils, but I got them cheap back along. Now, if you happen to know a farmer, get your hands on the peapods. Anyway, what else? We're going to need a bit of sugar. Here we are. Yes, we've got the light and the dark side of sugar, just because that's all I've got. Normally I would just use white sugar, but there we are. Be interesting to see what happens with the brown sugar. Who knows? Now, for the acidity, we need something small and yellow. One of these. Yes, it's a lemon. It says, the recipe calls for citric acid, but I'm not putting anything that's overly processed in this wine. So we're going for the actual fruit itself. Next, we need some tannin. And that today is going to come in the form of the cheapest form I can find. And that's this. A couple of tea bags. Yeah, that's going to go in. And last but not least, we need some of this. Yes, it's the old yeast. Now, this was by far the most expensive part of the recipe. I got the mangetout very cheap. It's probably only £1 worth. Motherfucker. The sugar's cheap, obviously. Lemon, that was 30 pence. A couple of tea bags, a couple of pennies, I don't know. But the yeast was about £2.60. That is because it's from a very rare monastery up a mountain where they make their own yeast by cropping it from the tips of their wands. But anyway, let's crack on. All right, into this mix goes the hot water. This mangetout is frozen, so we've just got to thaw it out and then give it a damn good cooking for a little bit. We've got it simmering quite nicely at the moment. However, we need to get as much flavour out of that as possible. And I've just developed a new technique, and it's called using scissors to snip the buggers. Now, normally with any kind of wine that uses some kind of infusion, you would just leave it in a bin for a couple of days, and the diffusion gradient between the high concentrated matter that you're putting in and the water that you're dunking it in will just, by natural osmosis, will allow the flavour to come into the water. But for this, we are cooking the peas, and this will just aid the infusion rate, hopefully, because wizards don't like waiting around too long for their grog, so we're trying to do it as speedy as possible. The other thing you can do, of course, is mash the fucker using a mashing thing. But yeah, I mean, there's already a very nice pale green sheen to the water, which is always a good sign. But anyway, I'm going to boil the shit out of this, and we'll get back to you a little bit later. All right, my loves, it's boiling nicely now and giving off a fucking awful smell. This may not be a very nice wine, but anyway, if it makes that sound, you know you're doing something right. Oh my goodness, my wizarding spectacles have steamed up. It smells like a compost heap. It does not smell of peas at all. This could be a failure, my loves, but we will press on. I'll take you over to the chopping board now and you can see what else I'm going to sling in this fucking thing. Alright, so I've got my bloody great big knife and I've got the lemon, and all we're going to do is cut the bugger in half. We're going to squeeze that into that broth in a moment, and we're also going to sling a couple of these in as well. Those are the tea bags. You don't have to put it on the lemon, but you know, that's what we're doing here. A completely pointless little bit, but I thought I'd put it in. Oh, hell, we had a couple of jumped out there. Oh, this is smelling awful now. Oh dear. Don't worry, this is going to be delicious. The next unsavoury thing to do is scoop all of this shit back out of the wine. I'll call it wine. It's I don't know what this is going to be like. I've also mashed the shit out of this so to get more flavour out. Now, one other thing we could do is just mash this a little bit. See if we can get any more liquor out of it, if you can call it liquor. It smells absolutely foul, but I'm sure it's going to taste wonderful. Oh, look at that. Very precious juice coming out of there. Okay, what we've got left over there you can eat later and put it in a sandwich. It'd be quite delicious. We have a very pleasant colour in there, despite the fact that it smells absolutely awful. Alright, I've fished all this crap out of it. I'm just going to take a tiny sip just to see what it tastes like at this point, this early stage. It's quite sweet. That's interesting. It tastes unpleasant, but sweet, with an underlying pea taste. That being piss. Yeah, anyway, let's improve it though by adding some lemon juice, which I'm just going to squeeze. Don't worry about pits and crap getting in there because we'll deal with that later. Unfortunately, I can't use one of those squeezing apparatus because of my other wrist. I can't do anything with this one. So I've got to do it with this one. Luckily, this wrist is normally, well, it's quite good at twirling around wands, so my own wand that is. So it's quite strong. Get as much in there as you can. Oh yeah. Just need to pretend this is a wand. Squeeze, you devil. Okay, that'll do. Again, the leftover lemon you can put it in a sandwich and eat later. I'm also going to pop in the 2 tea bags. God. And last but not least, 1.1 kilograms of sugar. Should have thought this through. This is the biggest receptacle I've got, this saucepan, but it may not be big enough. You might think this is a hell of a lot of sugar to be putting in, but most of this will be converted to alcohol later by the hungry yeast. Now, ideally you want to dissolve it, so I'm just going to sit here and stir the bugger for ages. I mean, this could be quite a nice cup of tea that we're making here. I'll sample it in a moment. I've dissolved all of the sugars into that. So really at this point it's more of a syrup than anything else. But we will take a tiny little sip. That's absolutely lovely. Okay, on to the next stage. Okay, hello there. Right, this is the next stage. We have to transfer that syrupy mess into this demijohn. I've already sterilised it and washed it out with a tiny bit of pre-boiled water because I don't like leaving any of that nasty stuff in the jar. Be very careful though, because these jars are not heat tempered, so you can easily blow the bottom off the bugger. On the top here we've got a funnel and some fine linen there to filter out all the various bits of shit that would have accumulated in the saucepan. This linen can be procured from various sources. A passing wench down the street, she might offer you her lower skirts that you can snip off for a small fee. Okay, this is a delicate manoeuvre, especially when I can only do it with one hand. And this is still very hot. Ooh, lovely. Okay, I've added just a little bit of cold water just to help the to stop the jar blowing up. This could be a complete disaster. In fact, I know it will be. In a minute. Okay, so I'm going to use a measuring jug to get that in more slowly, but I'm going to have to sterilise the fucker now. Now, I probably take the sterilisation part of this a little too seriously, but it pays to be careful with these things. You get a little bit of bacteria in your brew and it will completely bugger it. Okay, so that's more manageable. In he goes. This could take a while. Lovely. I think we had an air pocket or something, so it was slowing it down, but there we are. I did a spill and it's back to normal. In you go, our stuff. Oh yeah, that's good. Put that in there. That syrupy goodness. Okay, just got to pull it up a little bit. Look at that shooting down there. It's catching a lot of stuff there. It's making me want to go for a wee wee. Okay, lovely. There's not too much crap in the bottom, but enough. Alright, that'll do. Okay, so it's caught a fair amount of nasty stuff in the bottom. You may not be able to see that. But yeah, again, put that in the sandwich later on. Okay, so as you can see, the level is quite low, so we're going to have to bring that up to volume. So I'm going to do that with a mixture of cold water and warmish water. I want to keep the temperature up a bit just to aid the yeast when it first jumps into the pond. Now, tap water probably isn't the best thing to use, but I've got no bottled water, so that's what I'm using. Don't put too much more in because it could start bubbling later. Now, another thing you'll notice is that it's very cloudy. Now, that may persist throughout the process and you'll end up with a glass of quite nice wine, but it'll be cloudy. But it will clear, hopefully, but it just takes a long time. So we won't be drinking this for another 2 months, probably. Anyway, let's add the yeast. Now, I would normally prime this yeast put it into slightly warm water with a bit of sugar and let it start kicking off on its own before adding it to this, but I haven't got any sugar left and this is still quite warm, so I think it should be a nice environment for the yeast to go in one go. This is apparently good for 5 gallons. We're only making a single gallon here, but hopefully it will be quite a nice ferocious fermentation. This is for white wine, by the way. As you can see, this isn't white, but it's closer to white than red, probably. Anyway, let's tally-ho that in. Oh, that smells lovely. Now I filled that quite high, so we could have problems later, but we don't know. The trouble is, what you can get is kind of shock, yeast shock at the beginning. It doesn't know what to do, it panics, and it won't start firing up straight away. But then all of a sudden it will pop on again, so we'll just leave that and see what happens. The last thing to do is to put the cork in the top and see what happens. I've just remembered I didn't take a reading for the hydrometer, which I'm not going to bother with now. Anyway, let's just carry on. Okay, so here's the airlock. I've filled up with pre-boiled water, so there's no bacteria in there, and so this allows gas to escape the jar but not go in it. If the air is got at for too long, it will come with various bacterias and other wild yeasts, and we don't want that invading our brew. There's fuck all happening at the moment. Yeah. Okay, so in it goes. Make sure it's nice and tight. Keep your bloody wizard hairs out of it, because I don't think that's good for the brew. Yeah, there's fuck all happening at the moment, which is not a good sign, but it might be okay, we'll see. Well, there we are, that's done. Now, nothing's happening, but don't worry. It probably hasn't been ball stop, but it could have. But anyway, I'll come back to you if it does start bubbling. Shit. Hello, my loves. It's about 3 hours later, 3 or 4 hours later, and we've got a nice frothy top here to the brew. Unfortunately, the body of the wine still resembles a particularly strong gallon of piss, but we can't really do much about that. But if we look at the air trap there, yes, there is a definite flow of gas coming from the demijohn, and that is, of course, our procreating and respiring yeast, who are farting out vast amounts of carbon dioxide. Unfortunately, it's not that quick. I mean, I've done ones in the past where it's absolutely firing out of the airlock. But yeah, I might have shocked it a bit when I dumped it into that morass of quite unpleasant tasting liquid. I think the yeast probably got one whiff of it and thought, fuck that, would rather die. But yeah, hopefully things will start moving along better tomorrow. If so, I will stick that on the end of this video. Anyway, until then, cheerio. Alright then, this will be the last update, but I just wanted to show you what's happened over the last couple of hours. It's gone bonkers and it's trying to go up the spout there into the air trap itself. As you can see, yeah, there's a much faster rate of gas expulsion from the demi. So yeah, I think we've got a nice brew cooking here. No improvement to the colour obviously, but I'm sure it'll go down a treat. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you next time. Cheerio!